Hi, thank you so much for coming. Nice, no? Very cute. Every time I see her, she makes me smile. So I'm very happy to present this work, which is a really large body of work, which comprises so many facets and elements to it. I want all of you to be attentive, because everybody who asks me a question gets a small gift from Cecilia. So I have the gifts here. So whoever asks me a question will gets a small gift, and she's very sad that she can't be here. But I'm here to talk a lot about her and the larger project that we undertook. So Cecilia'ed was a large project where different aspects of it were going on. For example, we started with a lot of research. So the project primarily focused about safety for women in public spaces. One of the things that I remember a lot is don't go out after a certain time, don't go on this street, don't go on this, so much of restrictions, and I wished this was not there. It would be so free to walk around wearing whatever you want in whatever street without constantly being scared. And that led me to think about doing a project about this. And the research part of it was a lot to do with personal. I will go into each of these over the course of the next half an hour mostly. I'll move on to the research part, the part of it first. So the research part was, I was talking a lot about feminist geography. Feminist geography talks about what does it, how is a land, urban planning developed? Under whose eye? Who is planning the city? As a very small example, if you look at it, you will see a barber shop right next to an alcohol shop, right next to a bike mechanic shop. And these spaces become very gendered, because very hard to navigate these spaces. So who's making these plans? What does feminist geography actually mean to us? So that these questions started arising. It was not just about, okay, this is the reason why women were being attacked on the street. There were so many facets to it. So feminist geography is something that I learned a lot. Went into understanding herd mentality. If I immediately point, everybody will look in one direction, right? So that's also interesting to understand, and how can I use that in my project? Celebrity culture. How can we make someone who's a nobody a celebrity? Police reports. So I worked with the police in the area where I lived, understanding what are the different kind of cases that were happening in that space. Personal, I was attacked on the street multiple times, but that one last attack and I was like, enough now. Now I need to talk about this. I was making a lot of angry work, angry artwork, where I was like, I'm feeling this, I'll take photograph of myself in like that state and this, and I started writing, I was doing a lot of things, but nothing was changing. And I thought it was important to now take it to the streets and talk about it in a much more deeper manner. Surrounding the space, so I didn't do it like in terms of the entire city of Bangalore, which is a large task to take. So for me, it was, where did I stay? What is my location? What is the ward that I come under? What is the governing bodies in that area? And that's how I started. And of course, meeting Cecilia. So this is some of the books that I referred of feminist geography and the practices around it. What is the idea of celebrity culture? And I think a lot of it is also very interesting here in Chennai, where there are also some temples for actors and all of that. And I was thinking, okay, it's a very interesting phenomena around celebrity culture. And I was like, let's make somebody who we don't know a celebrity. And how do we study and research and make somebody a celebrity? This is the personal aspect. The safety pin is something that my mother used to give me always in my hand, saying that if somebody pokes you from the back in the bus, poke back. Every time we went to a movie theater, she would give me a safety pin, saying, somebody puts their toe and tickles your bum, poke back. How much of weapons to carry around, from pepper spray to suji to like safety pins to all of that. And I was writing so much around this. Why is this happening? Why am I not feeling safe? The t-shirt on the right side of the screen is the last attack I remember, in terms of like that really hit me when I was walking on the street wearing a t-shirt and two boys on a bike go and they spit pan on me. And I was like, for what was this? What made them actually do this? And I was like, okay, now I think it's time to do this project, and that's how I started. The cops are very sweet in terms of a lot of the police personnel actually came very close. Thank you so much. And spoke to us a lot about what was happening in the area and what were the reports that were being reported. Not everything was reported also. But Bangalore apparently among a lot of the statistics that we were following had one of the highest rate of being unsafe as well as a city. But we would collect as many FIRs that were collected and locate the locations where these were happening. The next part of it was herd mentality and the outreach that we were doing. Of course, we went on to social media, created pages for Cecilia. We have a website. We also created a lot of WhatsApp groups in the locality. So, this was HBR layout in Bangalore where we were working. So, a lot of WhatsApp groups we created to constantly push out information like what is happening in the area, what are the areas or corners that you were feeling unsafe. The Bangalore municipal had these BBMP meetings every second Saturday of the month, which was free for a lot of the local citizens to come and attend and tell them in person, this is what's happening in this corner, this is what's happening. But most of the time these meetings were not really attended well in numbers. The women's workshops that we did, the TV news channel, parallel workshops, collaborators, I'll get into all of this. So, these were the BB. So, I started putting out these large posters saying that there are these BBMP meetings happening in this ward, let's go for these meetings. So, I would go and collect a lot of the women from my area and go for these meetings because the cooperator is sitting there saying, tell me your problems, I'll resolve it. So, we keep talking about like these issues are happening, so please how do we resolve it. So, we release these pamphlets. So, another thing from now on through the presentation you will see is everything was a function, everything was an event that we decided to do. So, releasing the pamphlets that I am holding in my hand, and that is a cooperator there, and Cynthia is a local activist who is on my left side. And all of us used to, so this release of the pamphlet was an important day where these pamphlets were then inserted into newspapers early morning and given out in the newspapers. This was another interesting exercise that we did where we actually made a news channel called Everyday News, where we spoke about these issues that are happening in the local area. So, HBR layout had a local news channel. Now, where do we release this? Of course, we do not have channel rights or anything, we shot this. But one thing, if you see, most barber shops would have a TV, everybody is watching something. So, we put the USB into this and put this news channel talking about the issues that the women were facing in the area. So, most of the barber shops had these news channel that we were projecting. Oh, 1 second. Is there sound? There's a video, I can't hear the sound. Oops, sorry. Okay, I don't think you can hear the sound. I am just trying to see if we can have the audio, it will be interesting to hear, because there are 3 more videos that you would want to show. Sound is it? So, anyway, I will talk a little bit about. So, we were talking about, so we created these news channels where we had also the local women talking about what were the issues. So, they would talk about this particular area near the BBMP office where we didn't feel safe, this Good Shepherd school where after night this was happening. So, all of these like also real, yeah, so this is the women talking about the things that are happening in the area and which are the areas there were issues happening. So, we started putting these in every other channel and also in the WhatsApp groups that we had formed. So, that is on my, I can only hear my laptop sound. Okay. Okay, if it comes back, we will play it again. So, Rupa Agency. Rupa Agency is a news channel, a newspaper agency that we contacted where we were putting these pamphlets into a lot of the newspapers. So, we would go early morning at around 3:34 and sit with the boys to ask them to actually insert these inserts into a lot of the newspapers that were going. I am aware that when you open the newspaper in the morning, a lot of the pamphlets do fall down, but there were some people who picked it up and actually came for the meeting. So, there was some positive response to that. So, the women's workshop. So, I worked a lot with the local Anganwadis. Local Anganwadis in my area, there was one. And from the Anganwadi, I also realized that a lot of the issues were also very different in the way in which they were narrating. So, every first Saturday of the month, we had these women's workshop in the local Anganwadis that we ran for close to more than a year. So, each of these posters were designed or selected by the women themselves. They would select an image saying that this is what I am feeling this week, and can we depict that for the workshop. So, these were some of the women at the workshop. So, we would sit around also, some of the women had the smartphones. So, there is an app in Bangalore by the Bangalore City Police called Suraksha app. So, this app if you download, it is like a red button. You can open the app, press the red button and then a help would come immediately. So, I was installing this app in most of the phones that the women had which was smartphone, but also understanding the emergency numbers. So, this is an interesting question. I think we all know the emergency number of America, which is 911. What is the equivalent in India? Can someone say? 108 is ambulance, no? 100 is police, yeah. But like an emergency thing, same 911, which connects you to all of this. An aggregate, do we know? Yup. See, this is another issue that we all have. We're not aware of a lot of these. It's 112, okay, which is the 911 equivalent. You call and then they connect you to a police or ambulance or whatever is the other connection. So, these were the numbers that we were giving a lot of awareness, saying these are the things that are available for us. So, these are the meetings that we would host every Saturday, one Saturday a month. This was another interesting event that we did called the Open Bar Nights. In Bangalore, there is this place called Kaminalli where there is at one stretch, there is 37 bars. It held the Guinness record at one point for that 1 kilometer to have so many bars. But again, none of these bars were very easily accessible for women. So, I said let us go to these bars, let us talk to the people there and let us access these bars. So, in Bangalore, if a woman wants to drink, she has to go to a pub where it is very expensive to drink. Whereas, if someone wants to go to one of these bars, it's a cheap drink, you can quickly have a drink and get out and do whatever you need to do that day. And they were called shady bars because very dark, very dimly lit. So, we created these open bar nights where we said let us all go to these bars. So, we had the posters out and said let us go to this gender disruption event where we disrupt some gender proportions in these spaces. So, you would go typical cage like bars with all the all the people buying alcohol from these behind the cages. where we would go and be talking to everybody, and the first thing that at the entrance they would say is like, ladies not allowed. And I would be like, why? There's no rule, there's no law that actually prohibits women from entering these spaces, then why can't we enter? It's like, no, gents will lose control. I said, that's interesting to hear. What does that mean? What is this losing control? Let's understand that. So all of these questions were constantly asked. We would walk into these spaces and say, okay, this is what's happening. Do you know that it's very hard for us to cross just these bars from outside? Because a lot of these bars will be very close to bus stops, and it's very hard to cross these spaces. So we would constantly speak to them, and they would be like, really, there is an issue like this. I said, yeah, there is an issue. Okay, sister, let me think about it. And they would always let me think about it and all of that. But it was then interesting because we would give them these small dolls, which had like Cecilia and the project and what we were doing. And most of the time, a lot of them did understand. It was also very, it's not an easy job to do this, to go into the bar and constantly talk about this. There were people who wanted to take selfies with us because it's the first time in the history of a bar there's a woman entering the bar. Part of the project that we also had a lot of collaborators. Collaborators as in people who, so part of the Cecilia'ed project, we had somebody who will stitch her dress for the opening that I will show you later, some of the posters that we were making, some of the video and photo work that we were doing in the area, everything was done by people from the area. So we were very clear that any small aspect of the project that we have to spend money, like let's say we buy flowers, everything was done by the people from the area, so that there is a lot of involvement and they understand what this project is about. We also went to a lot of the schools, talking about this tiny doll and what does safety mean to us. So a lot of these small doll making workshops was done, and with the doll we would talk about what does it mean for us to feel safe. So a lot of the children actually made these dolls, and some of the older children, I would ask them, what is a superhero that you know of? They'd all tell me about Superman, Batman and all of that. I said, do you know of gender disruptor? And that was Cecilia. So I would show Cecilia's photo and talk about who she is and what her role in this whole project is. And they all had different ideas of what her powers would be. And now comes Cecilia. So how did I meet Cecilia? I met Cecilia on a cycle like this with her cape, smoking BD and going across. And this was 10 years ago, and when I met her, I knew this is going to be me in few years. And I've been living alone for 21 years, and I was like, this is going to be this is my future, what I'm seeing right now. And there was a dog running behind her cycle, and this is an image from one of the zines that the students had made. And I remember very clearly stopping my scooter and running up to her and asking her what her name was, who is she. And from then onwards till today, we have this very strong friendship. It took some time for her to trust me, for sure, because she's been living alone for so long, and it was not easy to kind of talk to her. So we initially developed very strong liking for each other. This was not for a project. For me, when I saw her, she was this amazing human being, very liberated, very free. And I really desired to be like her. And I thought, this is someone I really need to meet and talk and have this very strong bond. And that's when, we was talking about the project after, I think after 3-4 years, I said, there's this project and I'm tired of like this whole attacks on the street that's happening. Would you like to be part of the project? The first thing she said is, will my photo come in the paper? I said, yes, it will. And that's how then I started documenting, or like in terms of like photographing her. So this is her kitchen. On the left side there's a stove, and on the right side is her bathroom. And so this is her house. So the moment I get in, we have a drink, and then we talk about the world politics and what is happening. And then she dresses up, she puts on her clothes, and she starts. So every project, or let's say any campaign or anything of that sort, Vodafone would have Shah Rukh Khan, and like different projects had different celebrities. For me, I was very sure that for this project, I did want a person, but I wanted somebody who had a lived truth, somebody who has lived the hard life, and she herself has gone through a lot with respect to a lot of street harassment. And she said, I'm totally game to do this project, and that's how we got together and started doing this project. Everything she wears, she owns, and she collects it from different parts, and all of this is done by herself. She hates my design sense or fashion sense, and she says, don't even like come close to me, please don't, you have a very bad fashion sense, so let me put these clothes by myself. So she made me take photograph. This is a school uniform, and she said I was I was always late to school. And she said, for the time, I'll hold a timepiece. So I said, great, okay. This was very recently, actually last week, where there was some controversy about Poonam Pandey that came out, and she said, no, I have a better, coat that I can wear and dress up. I said, great, let's do this. So as you can see, a lot of these images are at Lalita Kala. So please go do visit the images. There are 100+ images of hers. One of it is made, a lot of the images are also in a book right next to the photographs that are framed there. It's a small shot, but it's very interesting the way we have these conversations. She talks about the kind of, issues that she's had in her own house, where they used to call her this black sister, and somebody actually then the other person kicked and said, never call my sister a black sister. So she talks about a lot of these things very with a lot of passion. And when I started spending a lot of time with her, I realized she's a celebrity by herself. I don't need to do much other than the fact that I was there taking some photographs, but she was on her own so magnanimous, this larger than life character. The other thing of celebrity culture also that we were thinking about was, what are these different, most celebrities have merchandise, different objects, perfumes to whatever these things that they promote. So I thought, why not have some objects for Cecilia also? That's when the whole idea of merchandise came about. So we have this very interesting, I'm not putting it in play, okay. So we thought, okay, if she smokes BD, we need to have matchboxes. So this was one of the first objects that we had. We also have a lot of stickers that we made, the dolls that we make. This is the zine that we made of, so it's not Dolce & Gabbana, it is Gender Disruptor, as she looks in the mirror. And this is a zine that talks about an incident that happens in the metro. A girl was molested, and how Cecilia then jumps into action and then tries to save the girl and talks about issues of gender in public transport. The next zine was talking about domestic violence. So, we made 2 zines. We also have these litho posters. I am sure this also was very much practiced here in Chennai, where a lot of these movie posters were made by hand. And these and I remember talking to Balaji, the litho poster maker, and he told me that he started his career making litho posters for porn films. And he was like, so now litho posters are banned in Bangalore, it does not exist anymore. But he was saying, I'm glad to like leave the profession by a project like this, which talks about safety for women in public spaces. So this is him. And this is the litho poster that he made, which we use in these street reopenings that you will come and you will see coming up. So we were sticking them on the streets. So street reopenings. So street reopenings were actual performances that we did on the streets. The streets were very much open, so there was no need to reopen a street. But these streets were very much gendered. There was no easy access for a lot of women to cross or walk through these streets. So we did these performances called street reopenings, where Cecilia, so we said there's this large street reopening. We have Cecilia who's coming as a guest of honor to come and speak. So she was brought in this very fancy car with her photos stuck in the front, and that's her in the center with the local cooperator and this Kannada serial actor who's sitting on the left. And we spoke about these issues that was happening on the street there. We had a local MC. So one of the things you should also understand is when these events happen, there's a lot of people who will come and stand. You would see somebody with a mic on a stage, you will immediately see another 50 people on the street trying to understand what is going on. So we use the same politics to talk about the issues that we were facing in that area. So the street was reopened with a ribbon cutting. A lot of them did not understand what was happening. So at these events, we would also give out a lot of the pamphlets talking about awareness. This was the second street reopening in the area itself, which again was which was close to a bus depot. Like I said, any small like event or such kind of intervention happens, there's a lot of people coming and standing on the street. And one of the most significant thing that I remember, and it was also very personal, when there was an old person who walked up and said, I didn't know there were people also going through a lot of these things. My daughter was harassed on the bus and she has not gotten out of the house for 2 years. Can you please help my daughter? And it was so sad for me to suddenly hear that, and this happened exactly on this day at this time, and we put her in touch with an NGO, and today she is going to college and she's doing really well. But there are a lot of things, even though we may not be able to completely change everything that is happening, but 1 or 2 of these small little incidents really make up for the kind of work that we do. It's also at the street reopening. This was at one of the metro stations where we were talking about safety for women in the public transport. This is Nemi Chandra, who is a local poet from that area, who released a new poem that she had written for this project. We had a cake, and the local cops are always invited. So they give a speech about what does it mean to be safe and to also encourage. So you actually see a lot of distance between the incident happening to actually going to a police station and complaining about it. And so we were trying to also bridge that gap, because most of these police station and the cops are also not really very accepting of what's happening. What were you wearing? What time did you go? All of these questions are still being asked. Another very interesting thing that, like I said, everything was made an event. So this was at the corner of the bar where the boys used to always break the street light. So it became more and more dark. So on the day of the event, we actually called a local BESCOM person, the electricity person, to come, get on and change the light. So as the light came on, we threw flowers on him. We actually sang, we clapped. So we made an event about it. And now it's been 5 years and the light still has not been broken, so that's a great thing. So there was a hotline that was released where you can actually call Cecilia, but it's an automated number. It ran for let's say 3 years, and then eventually that company who actually did the hotline, actually during the whole pandemic, they lost that startup. So the number doesn't exist, but through this 3 years, we were able to guide a lot of people. A lot of young children called, and that was the most disturbing part. Was 8-year-old. I still remember a boy calling saying, I don't like my teacher, he is not, I don't feel safe around him, and that's all he said. But he gave his number and name, and we were able to guide him to the right NGO. So the hotline number was released, and it was also interesting. We kind of worked with Google, and they kind of mapped these spaces. So wherever Cecilia has intervened, Google has mapped it. Today at Vijayanagar metro station, there is a mural that we have made. In Kannada, it says, we need our women of our city to be safe. And one of the nights I had gone and I met this lady who's actually on the phone, and she said, standing under this, I don't think anybody is going to hurt me. I feel safe to come, get down in a metro and book an auto from here. So that again was like a small win for us. So the pandemic happened. So a lot of the violence then shifted indoors. And that's when I started this space called Nammakate. Another thing again I would encourage everybody to think is, from a childhood, if you actually close your eyes and think about the city, you don't see women resting in public spaces. You always see men resting, having a smoke or having chai. But this idea of women resting is not so much seen in public spaces. Also at home. My mom would always say, do something, finish this, do that, learn. It's always this constant idea of being productive. But I also wanted a space where it becomes common in our public visual memory that there are women resting as well. And that's when Nammakate happened. We started it 4 years ago. It's a shutter shop right behind Banaswadi railway station in Bangalore. And this was the opening night. I've always wanted to dance on the streets with all the drums and the beats, and this was a day where we actually invited a lot of the drummers to come and we celebrated. It was and I remember one of the women saying, we celebrated this more than any wedding on that street. So we really had a large celebration of opening of this space. A lot of the women were very happy to have a space like this. We also have a swing in the space. I think it's time to take back the swing from the children. It's not only theirs. So we have a large enough swing for all of us to sit there. A lot of the stories, another very interesting thing. So we also started stitching. We started having, I would sit there and just stitch. Stitching is also part of a lot of the practice that I do, and some of the women were like interested in doing that. And they started sharing small tidbits of their stories. It started as 10 stories. And then eventually it snowballed into 547 stories, because they're like, oh, she's sharing, then I can share too. And these are very, very deep personal stories. I said, let's not put any name, whatever you want, just share. And I was really surprised with the amount of stories that came out. And eventually, all of these stories were very personal, very painful, but they were very happy that they could share it in a space like this. And they said, by stitching, it lightened them. They made them feel a little light. And this, we had displayed it all over the walls on the opening day. And later they were all stitched together to become this 23 feet large skirt. And this skirt, you can go under the skirt, sit there and also hear a lot of the stories. Today Nammakate looks like this, where there is a swing-in space, and I remember a lot of the people in the neighborhood said, put Shiva's photo, put Lakshmi's photo. I said, we are not putting any god's photo, we'll put a mirror and whoever comes inside will become God. And they said, oh, Ningala and the Maria, like you're that type, is it? I said, yeah, whatever that type is, I'm that type only. Somebody came and said, at least put Puneet Rajkumar's photo. I was like, we're not putting anybody's photo, we're going to put only this mirror and that will be it. As you see on the wall, a lot of the women, one of the very interesting thing that the women said is, எதாவது ஆச்சுன்னா நம்மக்கிட்ட கேட்பாங்க, which means whatever happens, I feel நம்மக்கிட்ட as a space would listen to us. So that's why we have put close to 700 years that have been sculpted, and they're all on the walls. This is another project with Namakati on the left, the sculpture. We also started hearing a lot of death that was happening in the area, but they were accidental death, a lot of dowry death, a lot of husband abuse, mother-in-law abuse. And one thing I remember, one of the mothers coming to Namakate and saying, 10 நிமிஷம் அழறதுக்கு டைம் கொடுக்கல அவங்க, which means the husband's family did not give me 10 minutes to cry for my daughter. And that was very powerful for me to listen, and I took mud from the area, I made these sculptures, and I put a diya on the chest, and we actually lit the diya, called the mothers, we all sat and had an opari. We actually sat and had this lamenting cry, so we cried for the daughters that died. So these are the 10 daughters. They were exhibited like this. And the pots that you see on the right side, again, I remember one of the women coming and sitting at Namakate with a lot of blood on her face. Innekkuda adichitava. So today also he beat me up. So I said, Sari, let's at least go wash the blood, and then we'll talk about how to go about it. She said, I'm waiting for the tanker lorry to come. Tanker lorry innum varala. So that's when a lot of the water-based issues, also something that we started seeing a lot in that area. So we made these pots with the faces of the 30 women who actually stood in protest asking for water in the area. So these are how the pots were displayed. Coming to the third space. So I run a space called Kanike with Vivek and Krishanu in Bangalore. Kanike is an arts community space. It's also a space where we have 3 large labs, one of the largest lab. So this is the house that we kind of rent out. And one of the largest things, lab that we have is analog photography lab, where we work with a lot of old analog techniques. So this is the lab inside. Now it looks different. It's an old image. And these are some of the processes that we practice there. The idea of showing this is also to kind of say of the importance of having these community spaces. And I think in today's generation, I'm at the end. We are at the time where we are constantly being very distant. We are not really forming communities. We are not talking a lot to each other. And even though Namakate looks like a space that is being run for them, I think it is a lot to do with for me as well. When I'm there, Bhagya would ask me, "Sapad aicha," and that really brings a lot of tears in my eyes, because I don't have somebody like that in my life. And it's so beautiful to have such kind of people in our lives, and never take it for granted. So the idea of talking about these spaces is also to encourage all of you to also build these communities and form a lot of friendship. I think that's about it. Yeah, this is the last slide. But I will, yeah, that's it. So I would encourage now people to just ask questions so that I can give out the gifts. Ask anything. This is not, nobody's judging, nobody's like questioning anything. Just any question is valid.
Indu,
Yes.
starting point for all of this?
Starting point for?
All of this, like what was your call? What was the source of your calling?
For this project in general?
Yes.
Like I mentioned, I think I was tired of being attacked on the streets and tired of hearing a lot of these stories. And I think I was also, like I mentioned in my talk, I was doing a lot of angry art, like not just getting angry all the time, and not really, I felt it was important to have understand it in a larger perspective, and do something about it. I felt it was enough. I need to do something.
Just a follow-up question.
Yes.
What is the possibility for replicating this sort of work in other places?
Very much happy. Whoever wants to do, I'm more than happy to support them. And actually, after Namakate has formed, there have been other small micro spaces that have actually started. I've even approached the government to give some funding. Again, all of this also requires a lot of money. So we are also asking the government to give some funding so we can also start these Namakate spaces in different parts of Bangalore at least. Yeah, but other spaces I would encourage anybody to take it up. Suchi, do you want to give?
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. Matchboxes by Cecilia to light candle, if you know what I mean. Pratna.
Thank you for sharing your work. I have a logistical question.
Yes.
Which is when you organize an event, then who is financing that event?
So, Cecilia as a project was initially supported by FICA, but I also have another practice where I try to like also sell my work and all of that, and I keep applying for grant and things.
Essentially, you fund it all.
Most of the time, yeah. Namakate is today funded by me, but we are in talks. Hopefully, somebody will fund.
So we need many more women like you.
Thank you.
Yes, I can't carry from these slides.
Huh? You
Carry home on the
you can't carry home.
I'm giving it to
Okay, okay. Yay, Kritika. Yes, please ask me questions to light candle.
Come on, guys.
Any language, like I know Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada.
So,
The
I work in the production of CPB.
Paathene.
So recently, wherever I go for registry or anything, I feel the same thing. Because I am surrounded by men everywhere, and I have to give even a wire or anything. It's very. So how does this work in
How does this work?
As in for even we are the other space,
Huh.
and I had to go for the late night thing. I wasn't allowed because of the women. They don't know ladies around, but I was supposed to manage the entire thing like that.
Hey, Suchi, what's this? Why? No, I understand. But I think this not allowed to go, I think should stop. Allowing, I will allow my wife to work is like, what is this? Like, all these questions are very interesting to hear. But at the same time, I think it's about, I'll come with you, let's go together.
It was from the VR's production.
Next time it happens, you call me, I'll try and come. Here you go. Yes. What is the meaning? Namma katte, so the Namma means in Kannada, mine, ours, and katte is actually a space, so our space. But there is this concept of Ashwath katte, which has a long history in Karnataka, where there is this concept of there's a big neem tree and there's like the stone bench around these neem trees, and these kattes are spaces of rest. But most kattes, if you look at it, are always taken over by men. So women do not actually use these kattes as much as possible, and hence it was a very conscious decision to have this space and call it Namakate. And very interestingly, just outside Namakate, the space that you saw, we also have like a tree and a stone sculpture around it. So that's interesting as well.
How are you involving men in all of this?
So very interesting question, because when we first started the space, we had somebody who actually came. You saw the cloth of the women on the walls, right? We had somebody who came and actually put it on fire, and he said this is an anti-men establishment. And I stood there, and I think it's also interesting to see how I have evolved, because initially I'd be like, and I'll get very angry, but now I'm like, sir, vanga, pesla, come, let's sit and talk. And he said, no, I don't want this place. Only later to realize that one of the stories was actually written by his wife, who he had beaten up. So he was very scared that the more the press or the more this visibility happened, that would actually cause issues for him. So he revealed that much later. Then I went out and had a drink with him, and I said, "Sir, you tell me what are the issues and all of these things." And we spoke at length, and now every time he sees me, he buys me watermelon. I don't know why, but he buys me watermelon. But it's also nice to see lot of resistance. First 1.5 years, it was a lot of resistance to that space. They just didn't understand what that space is, and also a lot of that particular corner, there used to be a lot of fights, and a lot of men used to sit there and have beer and like drink, and just opposite was a bathroom center. So all of this like made that space very unsafe. But today, after 4.5 years, the visual language has changed. It has become very safe, and we have Ambika, who's one of the ladies who lives in one of the Sunday, like in that street, and she now is very, she said, now I feel very safe. At 5 o'clock, can I start selling bhajis from here? I said, definitely. So she sells bhajis at 5 o'clock in the evening.
So now you have bhajis and watermelon?
Watermelon from my uncle. Yes.
Indu,
Yes.
were you able to convince the local bars to allow ladies inside? Were you able to do that?
For every day, I cannot go and stand there and ask them to allow women, but when we were there and we were intervening these spaces, it was very much allowed. But again, like I said, it's not easy to constantly do this project all by yourself, also with not so much of a funding. So to every day go to the bar and stand outside, not easy. So unless you have a big team or the team is being constantly funded, money is also an issue. But whatever in that frame of time I can do, I do. Yes.
Like since you're speaking about urban planning,
Yes.
not only urban planning, but even in terms of our houses are different. Like, we told a or somewhere like we have these things. Like kitchen like a solution on the latest
Mm.
like in very kitchen I design control or week on the look
Mm.
So by design of spaces as we go forward, like even urban planning of governance, other how do you think we can?
I think one of the most important thing is involve women in these decision making. Most of the urban planning is very patriarchal. One bunch of men will sit together and talk about how big the building should be, how this and that, but where are the women being actually participating in these activities? I think that would be very interesting. The first thing when I got into my houses, I broke down that private kitchen wall. So I said, I can't deal with this. But if you don't make change in your own house, that is also for all of us to, if you believe in this, go home and see how it is structured and start the conversation there. Suchi. Yes.
Just sort of like understanding the relationship between you and you as a photographer and
I as an artist.
yeah.
That's okay.
But essentially, what is Cecilia feel
About.
about like this project? Like, what are her
Huh.
reactions to this?
So she's very happy because she also has been harassed a lot on the streets. So she's also very happy when she comes from these big events, and she this particular when we do these street reopenings, and she comes there. And also one of the things that has changed in her life is she lives alone in her house, and like most of the places that you also know, when there's an old person living in the house, there are a lot of land sharks around who are trying to take over the house. So there are a lot of people who tried to take over the house before this project. Ever since she became popular and famous, nobody touches her. So she's like, hey, I have Facebook page. So it's become like a defense system, and it has actually worked in her favor, and I'm really happy that nobody questions her anymore.
Is there any place other than Bangalore that you've
Done this project?
yeah.
No, not really. I'm also, for me, I don't think I can do justice to just go into a city and do it. I don't think that's right. I think here, whoever's doing it should do it, and I would encourage them to do it. For me, I've been living in Bangalore for 20 plus years, and I could very much understand the politics and what is happening around me, and I think that is how one should approach, is my opinion, where I would not suddenly jump into a city and say, I'll do this here. That makes no sense. Who am I here? Yes.
Yeah,
Favorite silver cup brandy. So I always get her a bottle. We have a shot before we get into dressing up and taking these photographs. I have some more matchboxes. Please ask. Otherwise, I'll have to take this back. Yes, Hannah.
I wondered, the little prints, why
Yes.
were they banned?
I think a lot of the digital printers came about in terms of making digital prints for movies. So there were these really large size prints that were made. So they kind of lost the business, and then eventually they kind of banned it.
So it was not by like.
Because of the chemical process or anything like that. No, it wasn't because of that. It was just that the digital industry took over, and then eventually the government said no more of the litho prints. Yeah. Do I what?
Are you also the artist creating the design?
Behind the zines. Actually, it was the Shrishti School of Art and Design. So I had done I was teaching there for a bit. So we all got together to kind of make the zine together. So it was not a one-person effort, but it was 6 of us who kind of brainstormed to kind of make that zine together. Did you get the matchbox? Okay, I can take, I think, another just 5 more minutes. Yes.
So how are the women who work with Cecilia, how do they kind of, have they accepted her or do they have a relationship with her? It's also coming from the context of maybe, does Cecilia talk in Kannada?
She speaks Kannada, but women working with her, nobody.
Not working with her, meaning all the community, like
The people around, yeah.
how do they like identify with Cecilia?
So lot of resistance because Cecilia is such a free person. There are times when I'm photographing her and I have caught myself when I'm like, just put the skirt a little bit so you close your legs, and she's like, why? And I was like, correct, what is wrong with me? So I have also caught myself with this conservative or whatever thought that I've been brought up with. In the same way, a lot of the women around Cecilia as well, asking her why she dressed up like this and things like that. So now I am extremely proud of her, and I actually walk with her in my head held high. So a lot of other people are also kind of then understanding. I'm also a medical doctor, so a lot of people, so they go around telling, oh, doctor, if doctor can do this, be with Cecilia, then I think a lot of, so all these like multiple politics which happen among people. But today I am absolutely 110% proud of this woman.
May I ask?
Yes, yes.
How much of a harassment did Cecilia face
Huh.
before this became like a movement with you and other women in the community? But before that, was she also just dressing up like this and moving around individually? And what kind of harassment did she face as a result of being who she wanted to be?
A lot. So she was always like this. She would dress up as however she wanted. So there's never a time when she would be like, no, I'm going to dress a certain way. She was very expressive always. So because of that, a lot of catcalling. But I've also been with her and I've seen how she responds to the catcalling, where she would be like, hey, take more pictures, or she'll like actually go up to them. And it's so interesting to see how a lot of the time the people who catcalled her actually get scared and go back, because they don't expect this reaction. They expect, oh, I'm so shy, and they'll run away. No, but she actually walks up to them. So today she's able to like deal with it, not just today, I think she's always dealt with it in a very strong way. It's just that this project has made her famous, and one of the very beautiful thing about this project also is the fact that every time somebody comes up and asks, can I take a picture, she'll be like, how much can you pay? And that is amazing, because I said, you do not ever, even I pay for her every single image, everything. So it's also the transaction of it is also, there's no free image with Cecilia, especially if you take an image, you pay her for her time and effort. So that's also quite nice.